What a disaster. You know, in my videos, I usually try to stay positive, but I have to say, it's not going to be easy with this one. It all looks bad on the surface, but when you dig deeper and look at different aspects, it's still bad. Here's the letter they put out. In short, it says that as of September 14th, 2019, MoviePass is shutting down. They say they'd like to bring it back and continue, but as of now, they're not too sure if they're going to be able to. I should point out, I'm making this video the week of the announcement, so if somehow in a weird turn of events you're watching this in 2025 and MoviePass is the most successful company out there, cut me some slack, because right now, things are looking bad. My guess is that they're gone for good, or maybe they'll attempt some kind of a comeback, but it's not going to lead anywhere. If you're not familiar with MoviePass, the best way I can describe it is the Netflix of the movie theater. It's gone through a lot of changes, but the main idea is you pay one monthly fee and see all the movies in the theater that you want. They've shaken up the whole industry. It's been one of the biggest stories in business over the past 2 years, and probably one of the quickest rise and falls of all time. So what I'd like to do today is talk about what's been going on over these past 2 years, and why it's all gone so bad. Everyone's been talking about MoviePass for the past 2 years, but it actually goes back 8 years, just wasn't as popular. The main guy associated with it during those beginning years was Stacy Spikes. Over that time, the service was intended for avid movie watchers. If you find yourself at the movies every weekend, maybe look into signing up for MoviePass and you'll save some money. According to Stacy Spikes, they would put a lot of research into setting their prices. They would depend on the region and the theater. For example, it's cheaper to see a movie in a small town than it is in a big city. Based on these factors, their prices would range from $13 to $75 a month, but typically be around $40 to $50. Of course, they had various changes over those years, but that was the idea. Then in 2016, big things started to happen. First off, Lowe was named the new CEO. I have a whole video about Redbox that talks a lot more about him, but for now, I'll just say that he was a big part of Netflix early on and a big part of Redbox. So, based on his history, it sounds like someone you would want running your movie-watching related business. In 2017, something bigger happened when this company, Helios and Matheson Analytics, bought the majority of MoviePass. They were a bigger company with more resources and they can do more with it. As this headline from Business Wire says, they were already the #1 movie theater subscription service, which didn't mean much. They had around 20,000 subscribers at the time, and the reason that put them at #1 was basically a lack of competition. As the headline also says, they instantly lowered their price to $9.95 a month, which I think we all know is ridiculous. You ever come across something with a really low price and think, how can they possibly afford to sell it that cheap? But then you think, they must be making money on it somehow. Not the case with MoviePass. Stacy Spikes says that the new owners initially gave him the impression that $9.95 was more of a promotional price that would be used to push them past the 100,000 subscriber mark. I think that price point made their service more attractive than they predicted because it only took them 2 days to pass that mark. It's my guess that they altered the plan and stuck with that ridiculous price because they saw how many people they were attracting. Stacy Spikes never agreed with the new plan, and in January of 2018, a few months after the new owners took over, he was fired. Now, the company that owns MoviePass doesn't specifically report their number of subscribers, but I compiled this graph together based on various interviews and statements made by representatives that are generally thought to be reliable. Just looking at this, it's so clear just how fast they grew. Around 3 million people signed up for the service in less than a year. 5% of all movie tickets were bought through MoviePass for a company that was insignificant 1 year earlier. So now we have to take a step back and look at the big picture. They have millions of customers but aren't making any money. In fact, the more customers they gained, the more money they were losing. Let's just spend a minute talking about how bad this was. What's a movie ticket cost? To make things simple, I'll say conservatively $10. So when you use MoviePass to see that $10 movie, it was essentially MoviePass buying that ticket from the theater and then giving it to you. Given those numbers, if you saw one $10 movie per month, they would break even. If you saw more than one, they were losing money. But if you weren't seeing more than one, why would you pay pay for MoviePass. Do you see what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense. Either you're losing money or MoviePass is losing money, and nobody wins except for the theaters. AMC, for example, they're the largest movie chain. Their CEO said MoviePass paid AMC $12.02 per ticket on hundreds of thousands of tickets at a rate of 2.75 times per subscriber. Now, I took the calculator and I multiplied 2.75 times 12.02, and I got a number that was considerably larger than $9.95. That difference is the amount that MoviePass was losing per person. At one point, they were losing $21 million per month. Can you imagine losing $700,000 a day? Obviously, they couldn't sustain that, so they had to keep raising money and borrowing money, sometimes at the last minute. MoviePass was down last night because it ran out of money. That's not a good headline. And of course, all of this nonsense caused their stock price to go way down. It's really unbelievable how fast it sank. In October of 2017, it was approaching $40, and less than a year later, it was less than a nickel. In July of 2018, it went under $1 and never went back above it, so they were in danger of being delisted from the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is generally where you want to be, but they require that you're trading for over $1. So then they tried doing this reverse stock split where they would have fewer shares trading but at a higher price, really just a cheap way to stay on the exchange and look like you're doing better, but it didn't work. They were delisted in February of 2019. I'm gonna give my best attempt at profiling all of their changes in pricing and service over the past 2 years. In August of 2017, that's when they started this ridiculous $9.95 a month, one movie per day. Then in July of 2018, they introduced peak pricing. If a particular showing was in high demand, it would no longer be free, but instead anywhere from $2 to $6. Everyone hated this because it seemed like everything was always peak pricing. About a month later, they got rid of it and brought it down to 3 movies per month. Then in March of 2019, they brought it back to unlimited, called it MoviePass Uncapped, but it cost $19.95 a month or $14.95 a month if you signed up for the full year. But there were also more restrictions. If I missed something there, forgive me, because I've never seen a service change this much. So now we should ask, what's the plan here? Mike Lowe has a credible history, so what's he thinking? The fact that they were losing money wasn't directly the issue. Looking at Amazon, Netflix, Uber, there's plenty of companies out there that sacrificed in the short term to grow overall. That seemed to be his mentality through all of this, but ideally, you would have an end game. Here's some of their possibilities. The obvious one is, well, getting everyone to sign up and then playing with the service and the pricing in a way where they're making money, and hopefully people are still sticking around. And I have to say, they definitely played with their pricing and services, but it doesn't look like people stuck around. According to Business Insider, they were down to 225,000 subscribers by April of 2019, so apparently most of those people weren't willing to stick around with them through all of this nonsense. Another way they could have potentially made money was by getting the theaters involved. See, MoviePass was getting people into theaters. Maybe if they were willing to work with MoviePass, maybe sell tickets to them at a reduced price, sort of a bulk ticket purchase deal, then potentially they'd be able to somehow make money while continuing that $9.95 price point. But I don't think any of the theaters really went for it. AMC definitely did not want any part of it. Another possibility was MoviePass Ventures. They started that in 2018. It was a division where they invested in the actual movies. The first one was called American Animals, and then the second one was Gotti. The idea here was MoviePass had gathered all this information about which movies people watched. So now with these movies that they had a stake in, they'd be able to market them to the right people, which was all just another failure on multiple levels. Let's look at Gotti. I haven't seen it, but I trust it's probably not very good. It's a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the critics' consensus was forget about it. Oh boy. Despite it being so bad, I guess they sent out these notifications that said, audiences love Gotti, but critics think otherwise. Who do you trust? See it today. Obviously trying to put a huge spin on it because they own part of that movie. In the end, Gotti made $1.67 million, which is very low, and 40% of that came from MoviePass. To summarize the situation, they own part of this movie that critics hated, so they bought 40% of the tickets to their own movie and convince people to see it through their service, and despite all of that, it still performed poorly. The whole thing was a disaster, and based on how they handled this one, I don't exactly trust MoviePass Ventures to be very successful. In April of 2018, they bought MoviePhone from Verizon, which you may remember best from the 90s where you would call them up and they'd give you the movie show times.
Hello, and welcome to MoviePhone.
Today, they're more or less the online version of that, giving people movie and theater information. They figured they could use it to gain more subscribers and bring in some advertising revenue. In the big picture, their issue was never really with gaining subscribers, so I don't think this ended up being too significant. And then MoviePass Films, they bought this film studio in 2018. Again, I question the overall impact it really had. So I think I've made it clear, I wouldn't exactly call this a good business plan, but it may not have been as bad as it seems. It reminds me of those cartoons where they keep pulling the different cords to open the parachute, but none of them are working. If they had found a way to better adjust the subscription in a way that people would stick around, it could have gone somewhere. If they had found a way to get the theaters to work with them, it could have worked. If they had invested in better movies and promoted them better, there could have been something there. And then there's MoviePhone and the production studio. I just feel like there's some combination of all these parts that could somehow, I don't know, maybe I'm giving them too much credit. It's all been tumbling down, and nothing they've done has worked. They even had this financial scandal where they overstated their revenue last year. It just never ends with these guys. There's an investigation involving fraud and misleading investors, class action lawsuits filed against them claiming too many restrictions and blackouts. More recently, they had a database online with all this credit card information that didn't have a password or any type of encryption. Come on, MoviePass has been a complete failure, but the one real positive to come out of this is the movie theater subscription model. Something that was almost non-existent just 2 years ago has become a big part of the industry, and I think we have MoviePass to thank for that. Now, there's nothing quite as good as $9.95 a month for unlimited movies, but there's AMC Stubs A-List, Regal Unlimited, Cinemark Movie Club, all a little different, but I would argue none would exist without MoviePass. Let me know in the comments, did MoviePass ever have a chance? I just feel like every single thing they tried went horribly wrong. In the end, it all goes back to that $9.95 a month. You just can't make that work. Maybe if they changed that sooner or in a better way, I don't know why, but I feel like this could have been one of those things that somehow succeeded against all odds, but probably not. Also, were you a MoviePass customer, and based on your frequency of movie watching, how much would you say you've saved from their service? And most of you canceled your subscription well before they shut down, so in that case, what was your breaking point? Was the AMC deal more attractive, or what was it? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.